The crowd was silent, eerily so, not because of reverence, but because the princess walking down the aisle of crystal tiles was mute. She was the daughter of Zar the Unbroken, ruler of the Ceylon Empire, feared across the outer systems. And yet here she was, offered like tribute, like a carved gemstone passed between greedy hands. Her name was Alara, and though she wore the gleaming veil of royalty, her lips had never spoken a word, not since birth. Among her people, that made her cursed, a broken vessel, a symbol of shame. But tonight, she was to become a symbol of peace. Peace with the humans. She walked past glowing banners and bowed soldiers, all of them staring but none of them seeing. Behind her, her younger sister Lyra stood tall, glowing in praise and confidence. The daughter who could speak, who could argue, who could lead. Alara? She was the one you sent when you wanted silence. At the far end of the ceremonial hall stood Javier Solis, decorated war hero, commander of Earth's fleets, and representative of humanity's new diplomatic mission to the Ceylon Empire. His jaw was firm, his eyes sharp, but when they landed on Alara, something changed. He didn't see silence. He saw defiance, silent but burning. Chancellor Zara raised his scepter. Let this union bind our stars. Let this girl, my daughter, be the seal of our peace. And just like that, Alara was no longer a princess. She was an offering. The music resumed. The crowd cheered politely. But Javier didn't bow or kneel like tradition demanded. Instead, he stepped forward and extended his hand to Alara. Slowly, gently, she froze. No one had ever offered her choice. They only took. Her father frowned. The crowd murmured. Javier didn't speak. He just waited, a warrior extending not command, but respect. Her fingers trembled as she reached out, then grasped his hand. The hall gasped, and in that moment, thunder roared, not from the sky, but from above the dome. Explosions lit up the heavens. Solani's ships, the same crest as her father's, descended in attack formation. Javier turned instantly. Betrayal? No. Alara signed quickly with her hands. Test. Her father was testing humanity's response. And her own. The man had offered her his peace while readying war. Get to the ship, Javier barked. But the treaty, one officer protested. This is the treaty, Javier growled, pulling Alara with him. We protect those who take our hand. Missiles screamed through the upper shields. Chaos erupted. As the hull crumbled around them, Alara turned, locking eyes with her father through the fire. She didn't need words to say what her glare screamed. You gave me away, and now you've lost me. And in the chaos, her journey truly began, not as a silent princess, but as a rising force, ready to take back what had always been hers. This was no alliance. This was an awakening. The escape vessel tore through the burning skies of Ceylon, chased by royal fighters like hounds unleashed by a bitter god. Alarms blared. The hull trembled. And in the heart of the ship's command deck stood a girl who had never spoken a word, now commanding attention without uttering one. Alara, we need a route. Javier shouted over the chaos, sparks flying from overloaded systems. She moved like lightning, her hands a blur across the ship's interface. Everyone hesitated. Who was this princess giving commands like a trained tactician? But Javier didn't wait for doubt. She knows this airspace better than we do. Follow her lead. The crew obeyed, and when Alara's route took them through the maze of Varnix, an asteroid field where many ships had vanished, nobody breathed. She's insane, one pilot whispered. She's brilliant, another corrected. The ship dove into the chaos of spinning rock and deadly ice. Behind them, the enemy ships followed and began to fall one by one, crushed by the very maze Alara had danced through with uncanny precision. Javier turned to her, stunned. You just outmaneuvered a royal fleet with silence. She signed quickly. Silence is not weakness. He stared. You're not just a symbol. You're a strategist. They never let me be one, her hands replied. He paused, realization settling like weight in his chest. Until now. But just as they cleared the last asteroid, a piercing signal hit the comms, a voice familiar to Alara. Cold. Commanding. Returned the girl, Commander Solis. It was her father. You were not granted a queen. You were loaned a relic. That relic belongs to Ceylon. Alara's fists clenched. Her knuckles went white. Javier replied coldly. She made a choice. One you never gave her. Zara laughed, a sound like poison dripping from metal. A choice? She's mute, Commander. She doesn't even have a voice to scream. What power can she wield without speech? Alara stepped forward, and for the first time in her life, she spoke. Then let me scream now. Her voice shattered the silence like glass. Everyone on the ship turned to her, stunned. Her voice was low, ragged, but real. A tremor ran through the air, almost electric. Javier whispered Alara, but she didn't stop. She activated the internal broadcast system and spoke directly to her people for the first time. To the Empire of Ceylon, I am no one's relic, no one's curse, no one's shame. I am Alara Zerai, firstborn of Zarar, heir by blood and by fire. And I claim my name, not in silence, but in truth. Gasps echoed through the ship. The Solani fleet on their tail hesitated. Stand down, she ordered, or face the fury of the voice you tried to erase. There was a long pause. Then, shockingly, 3 enemy ships peeled away. Her words, her voice, had cut deeper than any weapon. Zatra's signal returned, choked, furious. You traitorous child. You were born broken. No, she said, eyes blazing. I was forged. And with that, Javier turned to her and gave a small smile. I didn't rescue a princess, he said. I followed a queen. As their ship disappeared into the stars, Alara stood tall. Not a shadow, not a symbol, but a spark ready to become wildfire. And back in the Empire of Ceylon, whispers began. The mute princess has spoken, and the stars have started to listen. The silence after Alara's declaration didn't last long. In the dark reaches of space, words spread like a plague wrapped in prophecy. The mute princess has spoken. Across outposts, moons, and shattered colonies once loyal to Ceylon, rebels lit fires. Old officers watched stars with clenched jaws, and distant tribes whispered in awe. For the first time in years, the name Alara Zerai meant something more than shame. But not everyone rejoiced. Within the obsidian halls of the imperial citadel, Lyra, the golden daughter, the adored heir, stood frozen as her father's voice cracked like thunder. She dares steal your light. Zahir roared, smashing his goblet against the floor. Your sister's name is being sung like a savior, while you, my chosen, are silent. Lyra's fingers twitched. The mask of calm she'd worn for years began to fracture. She was silent, she said coldly, until he came. Javier, the human. Zot's eyes narrowed. Then we'll crush him first. Let her watch the one thing that gave her strength burn. But outside their vengeance-fueled chambers, Alara and Javier had already begun to prepare. They had docked on an abandoned Solani research station orbiting the dead moon of Turex, a forgotten place where technology whispered secrets and ancient machinery waited to awaken. Alara moved through the silent halls like she was walking through her own buried memories. This place is haunted, Javier muttered, flashlight flickering. Why here? She stopped in front of a sealed door. The old metal groaned under her palm. Because this is where they tried to erase me. Inside the chamber was a tank, a chair, restraints, monitors once glowing with the data of a child labeled defective. This was my prison before they decided I was harmless enough to parade. She signed, trembling. They tried to fix me, reprogram me. When I didn't break, they buried me in silence. Javier's jaw clenched. You weren't broken. You were feared. Then, suddenly, the station lights flickered red. A transmission burst through their system. This is Lyra Zerai. Surrender my sister, and you will be granted safe passage. Refuse, and every moon you touch will bleed. Ilera turned to Javier. She's not bluffing. No, he said. She's afraid. You're changing the story, Ilera. And she doesn't know how to stop it. Before Ilera could reply, the walls shook, an explosion from the upper docking bay. They're here, Javier growled. Too soon. Ilera's mind raced. She led him deeper into the station, to a forgotten control core that still shimmered with dormant energy. We can overload the pulse engine, she said. Trigger a blackout in the sector. Blind their ships. That'll stall them, Javier nodded, but not stop them. Ilera paused. Her eyes met his. In them, no fear, only fire. Then let's give them something they can't ignore. Together, they activated the core. A wave of blue energy pulsed from the station, sending shockwaves through Solani systems. Communications died. Sensors blinked out. Warships drifted blind in space. And from the darkness of the station, Ilera sent her second broadcast. To the citizens of Ceylon, I was once the shame of our empire. Hidden, silenced, abandoned, but now I choose to be seen. I do not fight for a throne. I fight for every soul they called less. I fight for a voice. The message played across frequencies, echoing even in the enemy's own command ships. Javier looked at her, his voice low with awe. You're not just a voice anymore, Ilera. You're a revolution. Outside, Lyra's fleet prepared to strike blind. Inside, Ilera watched the stars shift. Let them come, she thought, because she wasn't the broken one anymore. She was the storm they never saw coming. The energy pulse had bought them time, but time is a fragile shield in the face of war. The Solani fleet had recovered faster than expected, guided by Lyra's fury and obsession. 20 warships, 3 dreadnoughts, and a new experimental cruiser called the Crown Piercer tore through the darkness toward the dead moon of Turex, hungry for Ilera's blood. Inside the station, the last echoes of Ilera's speech still hummed across shattered frequencies. On outposts and colonies, people rewound it, watched it again in disbelief. Some cried, some shouted, some took up arms, and others prepared to betray. Aboard the station, Javier stood by a shattered console, trying to patch into the defense grid, his jaw tight. They'll breach us in under an hour. Ilera, now dressed in a dark command suit scavenged from the station's archives, didn't flinch. Then we used what they gave us. They gave us a death sentence. No, she signed. They gave us a stage. Outside, in the asteroid field circling Turex, old Solani drones long deactivated began to blink online. One by one, then dozens, then hundreds. Ilera had reprogrammed them through her access to the station's core, a forgotten backdoor code buried in her DNA. These drones, once abandoned, were now her swarm. Javier, she signed. We're not running anymore. A smirk curled across his lips. God, I love it when you talk like that. Back on the Crown Piercer, Lyra seethed. The loss of control wasn't just political, it was personal. Ilera had always been the ghost in her shadow, the silent stain on her perfect image. And now, the galaxy whispered Ilera's name with reverence. She's just a girl, Lyra growled. A broken one. Why are they listening to her? General Kale, her most loyal commander, glanced at the broadcast replaying again in the background. Because broken things don't stay broken, Highness. They evolve. She's not your sister anymore. She's a symbol. Lyra's face twisted. Then we crushed the symbol. She gave the order. Full assault. Burn the station. Capture the human alive. Ilera, dead or in chains. The void trembled. Below, Ilera and Javier stood at the heart of the station, watching the fleet descend. They're here, he whispered. Ilera nodded slowly, her voice still soft from disuse, but clear. Then let them see what their silence created. She pressed a final command. From the station's outer shell, the reactivated drones swarmed out like a steel storm, converging in patterns, geometric, chaotic, beautiful. Not built for direct combat, but fast, agile, and enough to disrupt scanners, jam signals, and swarm key weapons. The Solani fleet opened fire, blasting hundreds, maybe thousands, but didn't stop the pattern. And then Alara unleashed Turek's protocol. The old station had one final weapon, a gravitational spike designed to test space-bending tech. She repurposed it into a spatial warp disruptor. At the exact moment Lyra's dreadnought entered the strike zone, Alara triggered the field. In seconds, the ship's internal gravity twisted, engines screaming, balance thrown into chaos. The Crown Piercer spun out of formation, colliding with one of the smaller warships, exploding into chaos and debris. Panic spread through Lyra's fleet like wildfire. "She's using the planet's orbit against us," a captain cried. Back on the station, Alara signed quickly to Javier. "Now's our only window. The chaos gives us a path through." Straight to her. "You mean to board her ship?" he asked, stunned. Alara's answer was fierce. "No more speeches. It's time to confront the Crown." They launched in a repurposed Solani pod, sliding through debris and fire, cloaked by wreckage and jamming signals. Inside the damaged Crown Piercer, Lyra stumbled through the carnage. Alarms screamed. Officers lay dead. She reached the command chamber, only to find Alara standing at the threshold. Alive, radiant, eyes burning. "You should have stayed silent," Lyra hissed. Alara stepped forward, her voice steady. "And you should have listened." Lyra lunged. The two sisters collided in a flurry of rage and buried memory. Alara dodged her blade, countering with strikes not learned in royal training, but from watching, surviving, remembering. Javier fought through Lyra's guards, keeping them at bay while Alara faced the woman who had stolen her voice. The fight wasn't just physical. It was generational, philosophical. "Everything we are, everything, you would have erased to stay perfect," Alara said. Lyra shrieked. "I am perfection." "No," Alara replied, voice sharp and trembling. "You're what happens when fear wears a crown." With a final move, one she had practiced in secret long ago, Alara disarmed her sister, slamming her against the control panel. Sparks flew. Lyra gasped, defeated, broken. Outside, the fleet was in disarray. Ships stood still. Pilots hesitated. Rebellion sparked within ranks. Alara looked to the ship's remaining crew and lifted her voice through the ship's intercom. "I'm Alara Zerai, daughter of Ceylon, born in silence, raised in shadow. And I do not ask for your loyalty. I ask for your choice." And one by one, Solani vessels lowered their weapons. The mute girl had become a queen not through conquest, but through awakening. But even as the war paused, far beyond the reach of Ceylon's shattered skies, another signal pulsed from deep space. An ancient force watching, waiting, and whispering. She has spoken. The Starborn has awakened. The silence after war is never quiet. It's loud with unspoken questions, broken oaths, and the heavy breath of those still alive, wondering what comes next. Alara stood over her defeated sister, the weight of destiny coiling around her like a second skin. For the first time, her voice wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who had been muted by fear, tradition, or tyranny. The Crown Piercer's bridge was eerily still, save for the distant flicker of red warning lights and the labored breathing of survivors. The crew watched her, not as an enemy, not as a traitor, but as something more. A symbol, a shift. She didn't order them to kneel. She didn't have to. Javier stepped beside her, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. "You just took a throne mid-battle without firing a shot." Alara turned toward the view screen where dozens of Solani ships hovered in uncertainty. Taking it as easy, changing what it means, that's the war. Suddenly, a tremor rippled through the ship's hull. But it wasn't from weapons fire. A massive signal, deep and ancient, washed over every console. In Solani, in human, in dozens of forgotten dialects, a message etched itself onto the screens. The Starborn has been identified. Sequence unlocked. Initiating Phase 7. All across the Solani fleet, systems began shutting down. Power cores dimmed. Shields flickered. The stars themselves seemed to twist. What the hell is this? Javier shouted, gripping the console. Alera's eyes went wide. It's not us. It's something older. Lyra, still slumped and bleeding, let out a strangled laugh. You've awakened them. Who? The ones my father feared more than Earth or rebellion. The ones buried in prophecy. The Makers. The Starborn Protocol. Below the station, the surface of Turex split apart like a cracked egg. From its core, a structure emerged, vast and alive with light older than any recorded history. Shaped like an open eye, it spun slowly, humming with quantum energy. Is that a weapon? Javier whispered. Alera stepped forward, lips trembling. No, it's a judge. The eye of the Starborn activated. From its pupil, beams of light reached out, not to destroy, but to scan. Every ship, every crew, every mind. The Solani screamed as visions poured into their heads, memories not their own. Ancient wars, civilizations that blinked in and out of time. And at the center of it all, a figure. A woman with eyes like Alera, with silence like hers, with rage like hers. The original Starborn, a being cast from time, whose echo remained in every silenced voice. Javier stumbled. Alera, it's you. That thing, it's echoing you. Suddenly, the vision snapped into clarity. The eye wasn't scanning for enemies. It was choosing a successor. A single voice, alien and divine, spoke across the systems. The voice once broken has become the bridge. The Starborn must ascend. The trial begins. Without warning, Alera vanished in a flash of white light. No, Javier shouted, reaching for where she'd stood. She awoke in a chamber of light, endless, shifting. Her body floated weightless. All around her, shadows of ancient beings watched silently. Some had wings. Others had horns. Some looked human. Others didn't. One stepped forward, faceless but radiant. You speak now, but do you understand what it means? Alera stared, unflinching. It means breaking every chain. And forging new ones? No, she whispered, melting the forge. Suddenly, her memories played all around her. Childhood abuse, humiliation, the cold eyes of Lyra, the warm hands of Javier, the moment her voice returned. Every heartbreak, every hope. You have suffered. You have changed. But are you willing to lose who you are to become what we need? She didn't answer with words. She raised her hand. Her silence was the answer. The chamber burst into golden flames, and when it dimmed, Alera stood not as a princess, not as a queen, but as the Starborn sovereign, cloaked in shimmering armor, veins glowing with the energy of ancient stars. Her eyes radiated knowledge far beyond her years. The voices quieted. They had chosen. She had become the voice of the voiceless. Back on the crown piercer, alarm screamed. Turex's orbit collapsed. The eye began to rise into the stars like a god ascending. Lyra looked up in dread. Javier steadied himself as escape pods launched in every direction. And then Alera returned. A burst of light erupted on the bridge. She stood, whole and changed. The crew dropped to their knees. Even Lyra crawled backward, eyes wide in fear. Alera, what are you? She gasped. I'm what you try to bury. I am the future your crown feared. The station trembled, caught in the gravity of the awakening eye. Javier, she said softly. He looked up at her, stunned. Yeah, we have to warn Earth. About what? She looked to the stars. They're coming back. The Makers. The old ones. The ones who made the first alliance and destroyed it. He swallowed hard. Then we don't have much time. No, she said, voice cold and steady. We have a war to stop before it begins. And as the eye vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only a trail of awakening, one truth echoed across the galaxy. The mute girl had not just found her voice. She had become the roar that would shake empires.